Hello, child of God. This is CPA Shadrach Adino, an expert on wealth creation and management. I'm also a practicing auditor and a financial management consultant. Above all, I'm a born-again child of God and a pastor. I want to welcome you to today's episode. Please sit back, relax, and learn from the teachings that we are going to bring across to you. Last time, we dwelt on step number 1 of the 9 steps of wealth creation and management. And if you can remember, we lastly talked about choosing a career as step number 1, and we highlighted on the 4 things that you need to deal with when you are choosing a career. We dealt with, among other things, that you need to be academically strong as a guideline. We also touched on marketability of that career. We also chose on career vision as something of the guidelines when you're choosing a career. To be very precise, I want to encourage you to go back to that previous episode and you'll get the guidelines that we talked about. On today's episode, we are on step number 2 of wealth creation, and that is employment. We are encouraging you that you need to seek for employment. If you want to create wealth, dear listener, I encourage you, seek employment. And we are going to touch on the 22 points on how you can create wealth when you are employed. Now we want to go on step number 1 on matters of employment. Step number 1, when you're dealing with employment and how to create wealth when you're employed, is job search. Under job search, dear listener, I want to encourage us, prepare a good CV. In preparing a good CV, ensure that the CV will capture all your basic details. Look at your personal details, look at your work experience, look at your academic qualification, professional qualification. And one of the things that people normally forget when they're developing a good CV is what are your career objectives and what have you achieved in life. So please remember to prepare a very good CV. In preparing a good CV, please make your CV attractive. Please do not mix small letters with capital letters. Put capital letters where they're supposed to be and put small letters where they're supposed to be. Be orderly and be organized when you're preparing a good CV. Do you know a CV says a lot about yourself? When you become careless about your CV, the employers many times will tend to put them aside because the first interaction that the potential employer has with you is through your CV. So therefore, please develop an organized and orderly CV. On our point number 2 on job search, we are saying write a good application letter. Write a good application letter. In writing a good application letter, please be specific. Be precise. Don't write pages and pages of application letter. In fact, I would advise us develop an application letter which is just 1 page. If you have to go extra, maybe go to the 2nd page. But in many cases, I would urge you, write a good application letter of only 1 page. The application letter should have your address, your postal address, and also the address of the addressee. Ensure that it has a reference, that is the subject that you're writing a letter about. Ensure that you have a very good introduction about whatever you are writing a letter about. Ensure that it has a very good body and a good conclusion. And therefore, the application letter should be precise and to the point. Application letter also markets you. So when you're marketing yourself to your potential employer, I urge you, write a good application letter, a good introduction, a good body, and a good conclusion. The body should speak about your qualification, in terms of academic qualification, in terms of professional qualification, in terms of your experience. Please show that potential employer that you understand something about them. Let's go to our point number 2 on this journey of wealth creation. And remember, we are dealing with seeking employment or matters of employment as a point or as a step in creating wealth. Now, our point number 2 is engage in any income generating activity as you wait to be employed. Now, we are giving examples of volunteering, construction work, hawking, farming, teaching, etc. Now, the reason why I'm encouraging you to engage on something is that you should not be idle. Do not be idle. Again, I repeat, do not be idle. Many people, when they are looking for jobs, they send application letters and then go back home and sit waiting for feedback. No, that should not be the good procedure. As an advisor on matters of wealth creation and management, I advise you that once you've submitted your application letter, which is very good, and by the way, let me explain. Even in the Word of God, we are told, ask, seek. Ask, and you shall receive. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be opened unto thee. Sending application letter is one way of asking. It is one way of seeking. It is one way of knocking on doors. That is very good. But after knocking on doors, as you wait for the doors to be opened, don't sit idle. That is our point number 2. Get something to keep you busy. One of the things that can keep you busy, in fact, it happened even in my life. When I was looking for a job after school, I even roasted groundnuts and worked hawking groundnuts, and I got my money. It kept me busy. It did not keep me idle. Remember, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. We don't want your mind to be idle. We don't want you to be sitting back at home and doing nothing. In fact, when you're looking for a job, you should not even be asking parents for money. You should create your own money. So by doing anything that your hands can be laid on, you are relieving your parents of that extra burden about you, about taking care of you. Therefore, I encourage everybody, as you wait for that feedback, as you wait for that potential employer to give you feedback, get something that you can do with your hands. Me, I roasted groundnuts and hawked groundnuts. I even engaged on mjengo, the construction work, and I got my money. Therefore, I want to encourage you, please get something constructive. Our next point is give your best to the employer. Give your best to the employer. Now, there are some people that once they have been blessed with a job, they don't give their best to the employer. I want to encourage you, give your best to the employer. Remember, what you're doing now will follow you. In fact, as you give your employer your very best, in fact, even the supreme being, the supreme authority, even God is watching. And you are developing talents. As you give your best to the employer, you are developing talents on what you are going to use when you start your own business. Therefore, as our third point, I emphasize, give your best to the employer. Point number 4, contribute to the growth of your employer's business. There are some people that have a character. When they are employed, they don't care whether the business of the employer is growing or it is not growing. I want to tell you, be concerned with the growth of the business of your employer. Participate. Do everything within your power to ensure that that business of your employer grows. Remember, that is where you are getting your income from. And therefore, you must be concerned about the welfare of that employer's business. Therefore, I say, contribute to the growth of their employer's business. Point number 5, endeavor to be the best performing employee. Endeavor to be the best performing employee. This is what I'm encouraging all of us. As you are in that employer's business, remember, this is a transition of your wealth creation. My word of advice to everybody is, one should not start life employed and end life employed. No. I don't believe that is a good strategy of wealth creation and wealth management. That, to me, that is not right. You should begin your income generating life as an employee, but don't end your income generating life still as an employee. No. That's why I say, but while you are still in employment, endeavor to be the best performing employee. That is very important. Don't be a mediocre kind of employee. Be the best. Our point number 6, as you continue in employment, embrace continuous learning. Continue learning. I don't believe learning has an end. Learning has a beginning point, but to me, learning should not have an end. Probably you were engaged because you had some papers. You had some academic and professional qualification. Yes, you came there when you had some training, some skills, some education. But that should not be the end of learning. Every time you get an opportunity to further your learning, please get hold of that opportunity. As you get hold of the opportunities and you continue learning, including attending seminars, attending workshops, going for further studies, you are going to enhance on your performance. Now, enhance, embrace continuous learning. Point number 7, be faithful. Do not engage in any kind of malpractice. There are many employees that fall short of this requirement. They take every opportunity to do wrong things. They have questionable integrity. They take as much as they can at the back of their employers. I want to discourage that kind of behavior. I encourage you, please, be a faithful employee. Do not engage in any kind of malpractice. Even if you hear colleagues planning on how to fleece the employer, please do not be part of that plan. In fact, if I were you, I could flee away like Joseph of the Bible. Flee away from any kind of wrongdoing. Be a person of integrity. In fact, even the Word of God tells us that on matters of stewardship, it is required of every steward that a man be found faithful. I encourage faithfulness when you are in the business of your employer. Be a faithful employee. Number 8, as you do all this, remember one thing, that you are sowing what you expect to reap when you start your own business. Therefore, sow the best when you are employed. I want to remind us, the life that we are living today is all about sowing and reaping. The question should be, would you want to reap bad things when you start your own business? Or would you want to reap what will be beneficial for you when you start your own business? Remember, whatsoever we sow today is what we are going to reap tomorrow. I've said employment is only a transition. It's not a permanent place in our journey of wealth creation and management. Now, as we transit from employment to running our own business, what would you want to see when you have your own business? If you want to see your business prosper, sow that prosperity in the business of your employer. If you want to see that business grow, sow growth in the business of your employer. If you want to see that business make returns and make profits, contribute to the profitability of your employer. Therefore, remember, it is a time for sowing what you expect to reap when you start your own business. Point number 9. Meanwhile, while you are still in employment, develop a list of alternative businesses. This is a very important point. Remember, you are not starting employment to die in employment. In fact, in my advice, you should work for about 10, 20, 30 years, but you should not exceed that. A time should reach when you want to say, It is enough with employment. Let me make money in my own business. And therefore, while you are still employed, develop a list of post-employment alternative businesses. Now you can be thinking of what you want to be. As a guide to developing of that list, I want to say, look at your passion. What do you enjoy doing when you start running your own business? That should be on the list of those alternative businesses. And what is it that will give you income? Proper income that will sustain you and your family. Therefore, develop a list. It could be a list of 10 or even more alternative businesses that you want to undertake when you leave employment. So this is the time of developing that list while you are still employed. Now, I encourage you as an advisor on wealth creation and management, please don't start thinking of business when you leave employment. That will be too late. In fact, research takes it, or research indicates that many businesses that are started by retirees don't last long. Avoid that. In fact, that is one of the reasons why retirees die quickly after employment. Don't be in that area. Therefore, when you are still energetic, when you are still earning money, that is the time to develop a list of alternative businesses. Our next point, number 10. Settle on one business after considering the following: SWOT analysis, your passion, demand and supply for that business, capital and other requirements. Now let me explain SWOT. Remember, we are doing all this when we are still employed. Therefore, we are not even in a hurry. We have all the time to do whatever we are doing. Now, SWOT means strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. Remember, you are analyzing this and you are still employed. Now, that business that you've settled on, what are the strengths that you have to run that business? Number 2, what are your weaknesses regarding the running of that business? The reason for looking at your strength is that once the time comes for you to start running that business, you are going to make use of your strength to make money for you in that business. You are going to exploit your strength. That's why it is good to identify your strength as far as that business is concerned. Now, weakness. Every human being has weaknesses. Therefore, look at your weaknesses with regard to that business. Look at your weaknesses with regard to that business. Once you've identified your weaknesses, find a way of dealing with those weaknesses so that those weaknesses do not weigh you down when you start your business. And therefore, a way of dealing with the weaknesses could be, probably you don't have the professional qualification to run that business. While you are still employed, acquire those skills. Probably you don't know how to market. That is a weakness. While you are still employed, acquire those marketing skills. Therefore, in summary, I'm saying while you're employed, understand your areas of weaknesses, start dealing with them, and destroy all of them, eliminate them as much as possible so that they will not weigh you down when you start running your business. Opportunity. You've identified that business of choice. Just start learning the opportunities in the marketplace. The opportunities that once you get out to start running that business, you are going to exploit those opportunities. Therefore, threats, as the number 4 point of SWOT analysis, identify the threats in the marketplace. What is it in the environment that might threaten my running of that business? Now, once you've identified those threats, position yourself on how to survive with those threats. There are threats that are out of your control. You cannot do anything about them. But while you're still employed, just position yourself and learn, understand how to manage those threats once you begin your business. Then also consider your passion. Consider whether there is demand and supply for that business of choice. consider the capital requirements and other requirements. Point number 11, determine the financial requirements for that business of choice. Now, financial requirements can be done very easily. Financial requirements is simply sitting down and calculating the money you need to begin that business. Do some kind of costing. Do some kind of what? Of costing. Now, find out how much will the furniture cost? How much will the goods that I want to trade on cost? How much will it cost me to sustain my team members, my employees? So do a total of financial requirements that business of choice will require. Why are you doing all this? You are doing this because you want to find a way of starting to save money for that business. The advantage you have is that you are doing this kind of preparation while you are still employed. Point number 12, learn. And I say learn. This simply means you take time and learn business operations from your employer. I've just mentioned a few minutes ago that many businesses started and run by retirees collapse after 1 year, collapse after 2 years, and therefore the business owner is left with nothing but stress. And then once the stress takes its toll, depression come in, because the person who is in retirement still needs money to eat. He still needs money to take care of the family. He still needs money to run his life. Yet, he is depending on that business in retirement. And yet, he has not taken time to learn how to run that business. That is why these people die quickly. For you, you are getting this teaching, this knowledge, that you don't fall in that category of retirees that start a business, the business collapses, stress comes in, depression comes in, and therefore the grave follows. You cannot go that direction. With this kind of knowledge, with this kind of teaching, you cannot go that direction. That's why I am advising you, take time and learn how to run a business. Where do you learn how to run that business? Watch your employer. The employer is running a business. You are an employee in that business. Find the skills. Find the tricks. How is he managing business operations? When problems come in the business, how is he handling the problems? When challenges come in the business, how is he managing the challenges? Therefore, take time, learn how to run that business from your current employer. When you go out of employment, you will have gathered skills on running business, dealing with issues of the business. Point number 13, gather information about your future business. Gather information about your future business. Remember, you had made a decision that once I leave employment, this is the business I'm going to run. Now that you know the business that you're going to run when you leave employment, what you do, start gathering information. Start gathering the details about that business. For example, you want to be an auditor, a practicing auditor like myself. Now find out, what are the requirements of one to become an auditor? Do you need to be a member of any regulatory authority, or you just start an audit? No. In Kenya, to be a practicing auditor, you must be a member of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. Now, such information, you should start gathering them while you are in your employer's business. Therefore, I say a very important point before you embark on running your own business. Gather relevant information about that future business. Don't wait until you resign. Start getting information while you are still in your employer's business. Point number 3, understand licensing requirements. Remember, You are getting this information and you are still working for somebody somewhere. Get to know this kind of business. What are the licensing requirements? Do we need a county government's license, or do we need a regulatory authority's license? What are the licensing requirements for this business? Gather that information in advance. The good thing and the advantage that you have is you are doing all this and you are still employed. Remember, get this information in good time. Number 15, study and understand market penetration. You know, you are not alone in business. There are people that are already running the business that you want to run. You are not starting something in a vacuum. And therefore, you are joining competition in the marketplace. One thing that you must study while you are still in employment, how will I penetrate this market? Yes, there are hundreds of people in that market that you want to enter. How will I get customers in the same marketplace? Study market penetration. For example, one of the strategies of market penetration is pricing as a strategy. Now ask yourself, will I penetrate this market by lowering my prices? Or will I charge the same prices as others who are currently in the market are charging? Therefore, understand formulas, strategies, actions, activities that you will undertake also to enter that market and start getting customers or clients. Study and understand market penetration. And remember, you are doing this and you are still employed. Point number 16, network and build relationships with future customers. The advantage you have, you are starting to build a database of customers while you are still employed. Remember, one of the things that make startup businesses of retirees collapse quickly, they are starting a business with no customer base. You will not make it. It will not be very easy. Within 1 year or 2 years' time, that business most likely will collapse. My advice is, if you don't want to get stressed, start networking while you're employed. Build relationship with future customers while you are employed. Make friends with future customers. Enter into membership clubs with future customers. And I tell you, my friend, the moment you will retire, or you will resign to start that business of choice, you will start with a database of customers and you will have an advantage. Again, emphasis, start networking while you are employed, build relationships with your future customers, and running that business of choice will not be a challenge to you. Point number 17, acquire knowledge about the future business, even if it means undertaking part-time studies. You want to be a professional practicing engineer, acquire knowledge about engineering business. You want to be a practicing auditor, acquire knowledge about auditing. You want to be a practicing teacher, acquire knowledge about teaching. You want to be a professional businessman of any kind, understand the intricacies of running that kind of business. What I'm saying is, during your free time, dear listener, take studies, go to college, attend seminars. Remember, you are gathering knowledge that you're going to use when you start your business, and you are still employed. You have all the time. Please take this thing seriously. Go for that education seminar, professional seminar, that workshop while you are still employed. But one thing that I want to discourage you, don't use your employer's time. Remember, this is a personal thing. Don't use your employer's time. Create your own time in the evenings. The advantage that this generation has is that we now have online studies. You can undertake online studies and acquire knowledge during evening, at night, over the weekends, to acquire knowledge that you are going to use when you start running your own business. Now, point number 18. Point number 18, ensure that you have saved enough money for startup capital. Oh, what an important point. You have done costing on how much money you need for that business. You understand the requirements for fixed assets. You understand the requirements for employees. You understand the requirements for goods and services that you will need during this business. You've done full costing and you know how much it's going to cost. I want to tell you, start saving now. While you're still employed, start saving now. For example, it might require a 500,000 Kenya shillings, or it might require 1 million Kenya shillings. When is the time to begin saving? The time to begin saving is not next month. The time to begin saving is this month. Start saving for that business today. And I tell you, if you do that, you are going to resign. You're not even going to wait for retirement age, because within a few years' time, you shall have raised that enough startup capital and you'll start your business. You will not wait to be retired. You will not wait to reach age 60, which is the current retirement age of most Kenyan employees. You will resign when you are strong enough and start running that business when you are still strong enough. Therefore, emphasis, ensure that you have saved enough money for the startup capital. Point number 19, ensure that you have enough money that can sustain you for about 1 year. Very important. Don't start a business with no money to sustain you. Remember, you are not only saving money for business, you are also saving money to sustain you. Therefore, don't just save money for capital for the business alone. No. Save money also enough to take care of your needs for 1 year at least. Why am I saying like this? You will not start receiving returns to take care of your needs with this startup business. It cannot. Remember, the customers have not so much known how you work. The customers have not so much trusted you. You are still building relationship with them on the business. You had a relationship with them before you started the business, but now you are developing on the business relationship. Therefore, you might not have all the customers you need to give you profits to run the business and to sustain your personal needs. That's why I encourage you, before you start running that business, ensure that you have saved enough money which can take care of your needs, take care of your family needs for at least 1 year. Now, how will you know that you've gathered money enough to sustain you for 1 year? Very easy. You are doing this when you are still employed. You know how much you spend per month. Therefore, the amount you spend on your personal needs and family needs per month, multiply it by 1 year. Then you will know, I need this amount of money to take care of my personal needs and family needs for 1 year. Ensure you do that before you start running your own business. Point number 20. Set up business location. Set up an office space. Very important. Now remember, you are starting to do this when you understand that now you have enough money. Enough money to start running the business. You have enough money to take care of your domestic and personal needs for 1 year. Once you know you have all these, you've built enough relationship with potential customers. You've built good relationship with potential suppliers. You are nearing exit. Please set up a business location. Just identify where you are going to run your business. Set up an office space. The advantage you have, my friend, is that you are still doing this and you are still earning money. You have all the time to do all this. Please set up a business location. Set up an office space. Point number 21. register the business, and obtain the required licenses. Very important. Remember, you want to comply with the law. You don't want problems with the government of the day. You want to be compliant and be a very good example. Have a business registered. Therefore, take time, register that business. Get the registration certificate. If it is a sole proprietorship, have a business name registered. If it is a limited liability company, have the business incorporated or registered with the registrar of companies, registrar of society. Get the necessary documentation in place before you start running that business. Get the necessary licenses in place before you start running that business. Very important. Point number 22. Process your departure from the current employer by giving the required notice. This is very key. I advise you, develop a good relationship with your current employer even at the time of departure. Do not burn bridges. You might still need that bridge when you're going back to the same employer. That is why I advise you, process your departure legally. Give the right amount of notice to the current employer. Don't dump the employer simply because you are ready for your business. No, that is not being a good example. Give the employer adequate amount of notice. Give that employer time to look for your replacement. I tell you, this is very good even for your future business. You know, relationship once developed should not be spoiled. It is very hard to develop a relationship, but it is very easy to spoil it. The relationship that you've developed with your employer, please maintain it. At the time of departure, don't just depart, but discuss and depart as friends. Now, I note that this time of departure can sometimes be challenging. The challenge at the time of departure is that some employers might not want to release you. Remember, you are the best performing employee, as I had advised earlier. You are doing your job without even supervision. The employer relies on you. The employer trusts you. Therefore, releasing you to go, being the best employee, might not be easy. Some employers might bring war. Some employers might devise every means to get hold of you and to deny you an opportunity to go. This is my advice. Be polite, discuss, explain, but ensure that you go. Because time has reached for you to be your own boss. Remember, in my advice, I'm saying this. You cannot create wealth properly if you are still under somebody's authority. You can only create wealth independently if you are running your own business. Financial independence might not be possible when you are under somebody's authority. Financial independence is possible when you are running your own business. When you are running your own business, you can determine when you want to do your own things. Therefore, however challenging departure may be, I encourage you, discuss with the employer, but go ahead with that discussion and leave and become your own boss. Now, in concluding this chapter, I want to give 10 reasons why employment is an important step in wealth creation. Remember, we are discussing step number 2 on wealth creation, that is employment. And I want to conclude by explaining or just highlighting 10 points why employment is a very important step in wealth creation. Number 1, while you are employed, you have time to gather experience on how to run a business. Very important. You need that experience. And that experience is gained properly when you are employed. Number 2, you need time to learn people management. The skills that you are going to acquire in employment is very important. That's why employment is a very important step in wealth creation. Number 3, you need time to save startup capital While you are employed, you will be getting that time to save money for running your own business. Number 4, you need time to build networks and relationships. Where do you get that? That is got while you are still employed. Number 5, you need time to carry out a SWOT analysis. I've explained what SWOT is. That time for carrying a SWOT analysis, you get it while you are still employed. Number 6, you need time to carry out a PESTEL analysis. I've not explained what PESTEL is. PESTEL simply refers to political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors. So where do you get that analysis from? You do it while you're still employed. That explains why employment is very important in wealth creation. Point number 7, that is the opportunity you get for sowing and reaping. I've explained sowing and reaping. In other words, you are sowing in your employer what you expect to reap when you start your own business. Point number 8, it is time to build strength and courage. Strength and courage, let me explain a little. Running business requires strength. Running business requires courage. Why strength? Because you will meet opposition when you are running that business. You need strength to run that business. And that strength, you will develop it as you see your employer using strength to deal with challenges. Courage, you need courage. Running business does not need fearful people, because there will be times when you will fall. There will be times when you will rise up again. For you to rise up when you fall, you need courage. For you to rise up when you fall, you need strength. Running a business is not for the faint-hearted. It's for the strong and courageous people. Remember, even in the Bible, before Joshua took over leadership from Moses, God told Joshua, be strong and courageous and lead these people to the promised land. It is just like running a business. Also, running a business where you are your own boss requires strength, requires courage. Therefore, where do you learn these skills? While you are still employed. Point number 9, you need time to develop and practice self-control. Business management requires self-control. How do you learn self-control? By watching your employer. How does the employer manage finances? Let me tell you something. You'll be getting money. If you don't have self-control, you may mismanage that money. Therefore, that business requires self-control even with your money. How do you get those skills? In employment. Point number 10, it is an opportunity to learn from experienced colleagues. When you are with colleagues during employment, there are colleagues managing different departments, colleagues managing human resource, colleagues managing finances, colleagues managing public relations, colleagues managing how to deal with government and legal issues. Where do you get that experience from? Employment gives a very good opportunity to understudy your colleagues. Employment gives an opportunity to learn what your colleagues are doing. Therefore, dear friend, employment is very important. Don't take it for granted. While God has blessed you with employment opportunity, take time and take advantage of that opportunity. And dear listener, as we conclude today's episode, I want to request you kindly, subscribe to this channel, like this channel, turn on the notification bell, and every time we upload a new video, YouTube for sure is going to notify you. Let me tell you, this series is continuing. We are going to cover it and cover it. There are many more episodes ahead of us. Therefore, for today, let me stop here. May God bless you and may God prosper you in Jesus' name. Amen.